Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Hunger Games, and may the odds be ever in your favor. I finally started the Hunger Games series, and I'm really excited because it feels very okay. All right. Okay, Molly, you get comfy right on the tripod. Thank you so much. It's so exciting to finally be starting. Molly, are you comfy yet? Take 3. I'm excited to finally be starting the Hunger Games series because I've been saying it for the last couple months that I wanted to get started on it, and I'm super eager to get to the newest book, the Ballad of Songbird and Snakes. I'm so excited to finally read that book and get to know what's going on with everything and how the Hunger Games started, and more about President Snow and his backstory and everything before eventually seeing the movie when that comes out. The other thing too that I'm loving is that it's just really nostalgic going back and reading these, and there are also things that I just completely forgot about in the books compared to the movies, and just okay, just ignore the shaking of the camera because Molly is she cannot sit still. It's just the things that I forgot about. I am on page 58 right now. I've noticed that the chapters are definitely decently long. I'm on chapter 4, just a couple pages into it, and it's just so funny reading a book where the pages are so yellow. I haven't read an old book in a while. That sounds so sad, but anyway, I'm already past the part where they just had the reaping in the Capitol Square and announced Prim's name, and Katniss volunteered as tribute. So I got past that, and they have already seen their family, said goodbye, and are headed to the main headquarters where they're going to be getting ready to start the Hunger Games. So that's pretty much where we're at. They're still on the train. So if you've read the book, they're still on the train at the moment. Her, Peeta, Haymitch, and oh my gosh, what was her? Effie. So I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to try and get farther in this book, but I am loving it so far and loving reliving it. So here we go.
Isn't that what they do?
Yes. They go. Nailed it. Yeah, there you go. Okay, back to reading. See you guys soon.
Terrible things started happening when you walked away. So that's why I stay right here. Cause when all of my dreams seem so out of reach, you're crystal clear. You don't disappear, baby. No. So why would I follow you when you're the only thing? Under the heat, I'm half awake. I've been hung up on yesterday.
It started getting cloudy and a little bit windy, but it was sunny just a little bit ago. I'm reading a ton of the Hunger Games, and I'm already at part 2, if you can see it. So I'm at part 2, the games. So the games are just about to begin. They just had their interviews with, what's his name? Caesar. Caesar, honestly, in the movies was my absolute favorite, one of my favorite characters. So it's just fun reading that back, and the big stuff that Peeta says at the very end, the shocking sentence he says at the end about Katniss and his crush on her. So I don't know, it's really fun rereading all of that, but it's kind of wild through the first part of this book how much they talk about the details of the food and the clothes and everything, and it's easier now to read through it and be able to picture it since I've seen the movie. But knowing myself, when I read this book, I read it after watching the movie too, so I never got a chance to read this book before seeing the movie and having to try and picture it. And if I had read this book before seeing the movie, I would have been struggling to picture all of this stuff, just because I usually struggle to picture all of this stuff. And that's why usually fantasy books take me a lot longer to read than some people. But either way, I'm loving this book so far. I'm really enjoying getting to, like, I don't know, see, because it's been so long since I've read the books and watched the movies, and it kind of feels like I'm reliving it for the first time. But one thing for sure is whenever they describe food in the books, it makes me so hungry, and it all sounds so amazing, except for when they say, like, I think they said at one point goat's liver or something like that. Like, it's so gross. That sounds disgusting. But the amount of times that they mention bread, and I am a carb girly, so it just makes me crave it constantly. Anyway, I'm liking getting to see Katniss's thoughts and everything. I wish we had gotten Peeta's too, but it's okay. One of my favorite parts from the first book and the first movie was when Katniss is in the training ring, like they're doing their 3 days of training, and then they go in front of the game makers and they show what their talents are. And then they get rated out of 12 on how good their talents are. And Katniss shoots the arrow at the pig's mouth into the apple and shocks all the game makers and everything. And then she, like, bows and says, "Thank you for your consideration." Oh my god, I loved that part. It was so satisfying to read through that again. It's just fun thinking about everything to come and reading through this. I am absolutely loving it. But it's starting to rain now, so I'm sadly gonna go inside. I'm gonna keep reading, get to part 2 and all the games, and I'll come talk to you guys soon with more updates.
We'll keep on pushing anyways. I don't know where I'm going. 2 days, one big commotion. I'm being carried by the wake. So hold me like an ocean. I need your soothing motion. Please help me take the pain away. Yeah. No way to change our yesterday. No way to change our yesterday. If I could tell you, I don't think you'd believe how long I've felt this way. I'm begging you to stay. If I could show you, I'd hope that you could see all the possibilities. There could be a place for you and me. And under the stars, you pack up your car, 'cause you're going far away from here. I wish I could solve, but I never call.
Look at it.
It has been a hot minute since I got on here last and actually talked about the books that I'm reading, and I have to talk kind of quiet because everyone is either in bed or about to go to bed. It's currently 1 a.m., but as you saw, Brennan and I just flew to Minnesota from Florida. We are here just for a long weekend to be able to celebrate Brennan's sister who's graduating from an internship, an intense internship that she did. We're really proud of her and so happy that she's all done with that because it was a lot, but she killed it and she was so strong through it all and everything, and it was a lot. So Carly, if you're watching this, we're very proud of you. Now I wanted to go through and give my final thoughts on The Hunger Games. So I really loved rereading that book for the second time. I loved getting to re-experience all of the moments that I remembered, but also like read through all of the moments that I completely forgot about. It was nice just getting to see like the differences between the book and the movie, because a lot of the things that I was remembering were from the movie, but I didn't know how different it was gonna be compared to like my memories and everything. And there were definitely a few things in the book that I had forgotten about, like little things. I totally forgot that they announced there's gonna be 2 victors as long as you're from the same district, and then they took it away, they revoked it, and then when Katniss and Peeta did the Nightlock berries, that's when they were like, okay, congratulations, never mind, wait, we have 2 victors, congratulations, you 2 are the victors of the 74th Hunger Games, blah blah blah. So I don't know, I forgot that little part, but I'm pretty sure that's how it happens in the movies too, or in the movie. So anyway, I forgot about that part, but otherwise, like everything else, like as I was reading it, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And like waiting for special scenes, like the cave scenes to come up and stuff like that. But I really love rereading this series. It's one of my favorites. But now I am officially on Catching Fire, as you saw in my last clips. I'm only like 15 pages into this book. I'm gonna read a teeny tiny bit before I go to bed, but I am so excited to get started on this book because I think this is my favorite book. And we'll see, I can't really remember. I'm pretty sure this was my favorite book out of all of them. I don't know what it was exactly, but we'll see if that's still my opinion now. I'm so excited to get started on this book and give you guys my opinions. It's gonna be a little difficult reading this like series and everything throughout this vlog because I get most of my free time on the weekends when I'm not working my job, and then also we're traveling this weekend obviously, so it's gonna be kind of difficult to try and keep up with reading the series, but I'll continue to give you guys my updates as I go. Talk to you when I have more to say. Okay, bye.
We used to have each other's playlists. No, used to be each other's best friends. Yeah, and now we go our separate pathways, but your heart's still in mine. Yeah, and maybe we could try it next week again, but I don't wanna think we're toxic, but who cares? You said that we're over, hands under covers alone this time, but everything I see still reminds me of you. Back of all your things, the memories of when I kissed you. Remember when we used to say to each other, we belong together, me and you forever. Tell me where you've been, yeah, since our break. I'm sorry that I blamed ya for things you can't control. I've been in a daze. I left my heart out to you so you could see me through. Though you still deserve better, you stick with me, cause everything I see still reminds me of you. Back of all your things, the memories of when I kissed you. Remember when we used to say to each other.
Alright guys, so a little update for you guys on Catching Fire. I am on page 276 now, and yeah, blazing through it, but honestly not at the same time. It's been a few days. I've been back, I've been working, and so that's why it's been difficult to get on here and talk, but I have been reading when I can, and I'm loving Catching Fire. I'm loving rereading this one. I'm starting to remember why it was my favorite. I'm kind of curious to see what I think between that and Mockingjay as far as which one's my favorite, but I really love that Katniss and Peeta are getting closer, or more so that Katniss is warming up to Peeta more, and unfortunately, sadly, in my opinion, sadly, it's just because like she realizes she'll never be with Gale, and so she's kind of resorted to Peeta instead, kind of like he's second, like something for her to fall back on, and that kind of bums me out because Peeta is my absolute favorite. Like, I am absolutely team Peeta all the way. I just have always had a huge crush on Josh Hutcherson since I was little, so I'm like, of course I'm team Peeta, but also just because like he's so sweet. Like, Gale is so sweet and so caring. Like, they have like a lot in common together, but I like Peeta more. I think he is so caring and sweet, and I don't know, I've just always loved Peeta more, so team Peeta all the way. But I figured I would go through like some of the notes that I wrote down that I didn't want to forget when I did come on here and talk to you guys. So I figured I would do that while I put on my makeup with you. Oh, Molly girl. So one thing that I didn't really remember is Katniss meeting up with Gale in the woods at this old house that she used to go to with her dad when she was younger. I didn't remember her meeting up with him and talking to him, and I didn't remember like the old house that they met up at. So maybe they had the conversation at some other like location and just kind of left out the house. But that leads into another thing that I didn't remember, which is her meeting these two people in the woods from District 8. Their names were Twill and Bonnie. I didn't remember her meeting them, and I don't know if it's because it just wasn't a very important part of the story, but that's the thing, it is an important part of the story, so kind of confused by that, like why I didn't remember that part, but it honestly has been a while since I last read the books and watched the movies, so that could be it too. But like reading it in the book this time around, I realized that it is kind of an important part. The rebellion starting and all of the uprisings in the different districts, that part is pretty important, and so if they don't have it in the movie, I'm kind of surprised. Also, it broke my heart reading through again the part where they're going through their tour after getting back from the games. They started doing the tours to all the districts, saying hi to everyone, and being in 11 and her apologizing to Rue's family and to Thresh's family, and then Peeta offering like a month of their earnings every year for the rest of their lives. I definitely remember the part where they all put their hands up and do the whistle, and an old gentleman starts it, and then at the very end, right before they cut off the live feed of it, I remember that part, and like I remember it breaking my heart just that they brought up the guy that started it, because everyone in the crowd did it, and they brought him up and they shot him, and that I remember that breaking my heart and making me tear up, and just like her seeing all of Rue's family and everything like that. That part was so sad. I didn't realize or remember how long the first half of the book is before they go back into the games and do the quarter quell. It just felt like so much shorter, and maybe in the movie it felt shorter than it did in the book or something like that, but I didn't remember it being so long. But then when they finally get to the quarter quell, they're just like right into it. And another part that broke my heart is when Katniss is about to go into the games and the glass goes around her for her to go up into the arena. And so she's stuck in that little area, and they wait to start the games, and some of the peacemakers come in and hit Cinna a bunch of times and then drag him off, and she just has to sit there and watch him get beat up. I was not looking forward to getting to that part. Now I am in the quarter quell, like they have just started it. They've just started the games, and Katniss has just realized that Finnick is on her side, at least right now, and they met up with Peeta and Mags, which is Finnick's partner, if you remember. It's taking a second for me to remember all of these like different characters and stuff like that for some of them, and other ones I remember right away. Like Joanna, I remember her. I remember Katniss and Peeta getting into the elevator and Joanna joining them, and then her stripping down and being completely naked, and then Katniss's face being like, like so pissed off that she's just like naked and Peeta's loving it, thinking it's so funny that Katniss is uncomfortable. I remember how freaking adorable Peeta always was. Like, there were 2 parts I wrote down that like I don't want to highlight and annotate my original copies of the Hunger Games, so I like wrote down the notes, and I kind of want to put them on post-it notes and just keep them in the book. But the part where Peeta says, page 211, having an eye for beauty isn't the same thing as a weakness, except possibly when it comes to you. I thought that was so cute. And then also on 244, she's like, well, what should we do on our last night before going into the games? And he's like, I just want to spend every possible minute of the rest of my life with you. And she's like, okay. I would be like, absolutely. I already thought that's what we were doing. But another thing that I forgot, like I remembered it as I was reading it, but when Katniss goes on stage for her interview with Caesar and she's wearing the wedding gown, and it was President Snow's order for her to wear her wedding gown since they didn't get to have the wedding, she wears the wedding dress and then spins, and the dress burns up and turns into the design of like a mockingjay, and she like has wings, like she lifts her arms up and it looks like wings. Like as I was reading it, I remembered being like, oh my gosh, that's right, I forgot about that, that was such a good part. And then like all of the victors holding hands right at the end of all the interviews and the recording cutting out because the Capitol and President Snow was pissed off because they were all kind of like defying him and being like, screw you for making us go into these games again. Also, going back a little bit toward the beginning of the book and just like characters that I didn't really remember, I don't really remember Madge. And I don't know if you guys remember Madge, like if you've read The Hunger Games and seen like the movies. It was like someone from Katniss's district. She's the mayor's daughter, and she's been now in book 1 and book 2, and I didn't really remember her. She's the one in the first book that gives Katniss the Mockingjay pin, the gold Mockingjay pin, and I don't remember Madge doing that, but I obviously remember Katniss getting the Mockingjay pin because I remember her wearing it. I don't know if a different character gave her the pin or if it was Madge, and I just don't really remember Madge, but Madge comes in and gives her the pin and says, this is for you, like you have to wear it in the games. And then after Katniss and Peeta win the games and they come back, she makes sure to get close with Madge again, and they form a friendship. And so Madge is in the second book too, and I don't remember her. I don't know if I'm alone in that one. Comment below if you remember her or not, because she is like a good part of the book. Like she's one of Katniss's only friends aside from Gale. I'm kind of surprised that I don't really remember that part, but again, it's been so long since I watched the movies or read the books, so that's probably why. Also, I definitely remember, and it broke my heart again, reading through the part where in the beginning Gale gets whipped. He's like unconscious and has his hands tied up, and like he's been whipped a bunch of times. His back is like brutally injured and marred and destroyed. I like kind of forgot about that part, but remembered it as I was reading it. It was like, oh shoot, I forgot about this part and how much I hated it. One last thing that I was kind of surprised by is how long it takes between when they find out that the victors are gonna be going into the Quarter Quell and when they actually do go into the Quarter Quell. Like it's a couple weeks between when it's announced and when the names are actually drawn. And I was really surprised by that because there's a little chunk of the book where Katniss, Peeta, and Haymitch are trying to get their, pardon my French, trying to get their shit together, and Haymitch is stopping drinking. They're all working out together. They're going on runs. They're trying to bulk up and get fit and get ready for the games, just in case, like, between Peeta and Haymitch, one of them is for sure going to be chosen because they're the only male victors from District 12. And then Katniss is the only woman in District 12 who's a victor that's alive. So she knows that she's going to be going back into the games, but Peeta and Haymitch don't know, and Peeta is insisting on going back into the game to protect Katniss, and Katniss wants to protect Peeta, and so she's trying to form a plan with Haymitch to protect Peeta. Like, that lasts like a couple weeks of them like training and getting ready for the games before they announce who's going into the games. Do you think that it would be like the same day as when they draw the names? But anyway, that's such a little minor detail, but I just wanted to say it on here because I was like kind of surprised by that. But yeah, that is all my thoughts that I have so far on the book. I am about to read the rest of the book today. My plan is to do nothing else but sit down on that couch and read the rest of this book and start Mockingjay. I'm officially in part 3 of the book, The Enemy, and I only have this much left of the book, so not too much more. I'm hoping to speed through it and be able to get to Mockingjay and read a good chunk of that today. So I'll keep you guys updated, and I'll talk to you soon with more thoughts. I remember why I liked the second book more than I liked the first. I like that the games have a little bit of a puzzle to them. I like the different things that they notice throughout, like the fact that the arena is a dome and that the center wheel is a clock, and that at midnight there's a lightning strike and there's 12 gong sounds that ring off, showing that it's midnight, and the fact that like the arena is set up like a clock, and like each time it hits that gong there's like something bad that happens. I just remember that and remember thinking like it was so fascinating, interesting that the arena this time was kind of like a puzzle. Is that weird? Is that creepy? I don't know, but also I really like that you get to know the different victors more than you do in the first book / movie. You get to like a lot of them more. I'm having a lot of fun rereading through these books again. If you have only read through these books once before and you're considering reading them again, I highly recommend it because it's just fun seeing all the things that you didn't see the first time and just like re-enjoying it from a different perspective. I don't know, it's really fun. I like it a lot. All the puzzle pieces are starting to finally go into place, and I'm getting so excited. Wirus keeps repeating over and over, tick-tock, tick-tock, which if you've read these books before, you know what's coming up soon. I'm loving this, like I've said a billion times. Okay, it's raining outside, so it might be a little bit hard to hear me, but I wanted to come out here just to talk about my final thoughts on Catching Fire, which I just finished, as you saw. My roommates are starting to come home, and so I just wanted to come out here, so I don't know what it is. I can't talk on the camera in front of people, but with Catching Fire, I loved reading the end of this book again. I keep saying it, I know, but it was just so fun reliving what happens and how Katniss shoots the arrow into the force field and the explosion happens, and then she's brought up into the hovercraft and taken away with Plutarch, Haymitch, and Finnick. And Beetee, he is in the bed across from her when she wakes up in the hovercraft. And when Katniss finally comes to enough to ask where Peeta is and like finds Haymitch and Plutarch and Finnick talking to each other about like what's going on in the other districts, and she finds out where Peeta is, that he's at the Capitol, and so is Joanna and Obaria, I believe is the other person's name. They're all at the Capitol, and so everything is about to begin that I hate, but the end of this book is so good. All of it is so good. I love how the story was written, how it all went down, and how it builds up for the third book, because it leaves you on the biggest cliffhanger with her seeing Gale and Gale saying District 12 is no longer a district, that it's no longer there and was destroyed. And that's where you're left off. And I'm just like, I immediately am gonna go into Mockingjay, and I'm so excited. I love the way this book was written and how it was all handled and went down, and it just speeds up so much at the end, and so much happens the last quarter of the book that you just can't put it down. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, yes, I am in the same sweatshirt as last night, but I've been wearing this sweatshirt every day, like as often as I can, because I'm obsessed with it. It's so comfy, it's so soft, and I just absolutely love it. And the colors are so cute. But aside from that, I started Mockingjay a little bit last night. I didn't read too much. I read maybe like 40 pages. And then this morning I read a ton. I am now 84 pages into the book, and I'm just about to start chapter 7. I'm really enjoying reading this book. So far, my feelings are true to my past self when I first read these books, that I absolutely loved Catching Fire. I think I just love how much happens in the second half, and I didn't realize how little happens in the first half, and so I was really confused. But just knowing what happens in this book, honestly, it is a really hard book to read, just because there's a lot of things that I don't like that happen in this book. That also might be part of why I absolutely love Catching Fire out of all three of them. But nonetheless, I am enjoying reading this book so far, and I don't really have too many thoughts so far on what I've read, except for the fact that it breaks my heart how lost Finnick is, and how he's just like hasn't been the same as his old self since they got out of the Quell, and just like how like confused and like how they're treating him like he's, I don't know, this injured bird that they need to like baby so much. I don't know, it just breaks my heart that he's just struggling as much as he is, and that he can't see Annie. It's just really sad, because I really like Finnick, and I just want, yeah, enough talking about him, because I like him and it breaks my heart thinking about what happens in this book. It's frustrating, the whole like getting started with Katniss being a Mockingjay and her figuring out if she should do it and stuff like that. It just like is not boring to me, but I just don't like a sequence of the events that happen. The president of District 13 bothers me, and I'm just like, that's how she's supposed to be. But Coin bothers me, President Coin. And Plutarch Heavensbee I really like, but in the beginning of the book he kind of bothers me of this one, just like when he's talking to Katniss and trying to get her to be the Mockingjay. Also, completely different turn of from what I was just talking about, but these books make me want to learn archery and do archery. Like, it's so cool and it sounds so fun and satisfying. Like, I don't know, I just really want to learn archery. So also, one other thing I just thought of, because I just saw Haymitch's name, it's frustrating and kind of sad how much Katniss is like upset with him. He made a promise to both her and Peeta separately that he was gonna help them save each other. Peeta wanted to make sure that Katniss lived, and Katniss wanted to make sure Peeta lived, and so like obviously he had to choose one or the other. He couldn't save both, but actually like that was his plan all along, was to save both, mainly save Katniss. And so she's just really pissed off at him that he didn't tell them his plans and didn't include them in it. But it just is annoying that she doesn't understand just how much he needed to keep that from them. Like, he couldn't just tell them the plan because they would make it too obvious and it just wouldn't work out as well. It's just kind of a bummer, because like the relationship that Katniss and Peeta and Haymitch have formed since Katniss and Peeta got out of the Hunger Games, it just like, I don't know, it breaks my heart and it frustrates me. Anyway, we're just getting to the part where they're starting to do the recordings, and they've decided that Katniss doing the recordings in front of a green screen isn't gonna cut it. Like, it's not believable, and if she's wanting to start uprisings against the Capitol with the different districts, that's not the way to do it, that it needs to be more sincere, it needs to be more real. And so they're just getting ready to go out to District 8 first so that she can see things in person and feel raw emotions, and then they'll record that. The book's about to start picking up, and I'm excited for that, because the beginning was a little bit slow, but it's not as slow as Catching Fire was in the beginning. Catching Fire was slow for like half the book, and this one, it's only been like this much, and now it's about to somewhat start picking up. I think it's gonna take like a little bit more, but anyway, I'm gonna get back to reading. I'm gonna stop rambling. Let's keep reading. Hi guys. Okay, I am getting ready to go meet up with a friend to get coffee and just hang out and catch up. But before I meet up with her, I wanted to get on here and talk a little bit about my updates. I am on page 160 now. I'm really enjoying it. I think I'm reading it a bit slower than I was with Catching Fire and Hunger Games, just because, I don't know, there's just a lot more things that happen in this book that frustrate me. You just want Peeta safe and okay, and it's heartbreaking that he gets ruined, like completely ruined mentally and physically, and turned against Katniss and everyone that he loves. And then also there's just things that I realized that I didn't realize before about like Plutarch Heavensbee, the game maker. I didn't realize just like how, like I thought that he was like completely just good and that there weren't any issues between him and Katniss, and I didn't realize that with this book, maybe like the movie is different, but at least in the book, Katniss doesn't look at him as an ally. She like doesn't know if she can trust him. But where I'm at in the book, District 13 is getting attacked, it's getting bombed, and so everyone has to go down into the bunkers, and they go really deep down. They have to stay there for a few days until it's all over with, and all the bombings just ended, and so they're just going up for the first time. And I just can't imagine it, because there's one part she's like imagining what would happen if they don't make it out, like if the bombs ruin enough of the upper grounds that they get trapped down there and they just slowly die. I cannot imagine that. That would be terrifying. I feel like this time around reading these books, I'm imagining putting myself in their shoes more, like what I would do and stuff like that, especially when they're in the arena and they have to fend for themselves and get their own food, find water and all that stuff, and like do the basics to survive. I cannot imagine that. Like most of us in this world would not be able to survive nowadays because we depend so much on fresh water and food easily accessible whenever we want. Like I cannot imagine us having to do something like this where we have to hunt for our food. She's like skinning the animals and then cooking them, and some of them she's not even cooking, and I'm like, that's not sanitary at all. And it ends up being fine, like, and finding the right plants that are edible, the ones that are poisonous, stuff like that. Like, can you imagine if we got like stuck and we had to like do that? We'd all be screwed. At least I know I would be screwed. But it's just like those kind of thoughts that are running through my mind with this series, and it's just really fascinating. So anyway, I do remember now why I like the second book better than this book, because it's just so hard to get through reading how the Capitol is treating Peeta. Peeta just warned them about the bombings that were about to happen, and so he's getting hurt and punished for it, and those parts are really hard to read and break my heart. So I'm going to continue reading in the bookshop until my friend gets there, and I will give you my thoughts soon when I have more to share with you. All right, let's go read.
Out of my head, try to stray, try to forget, but the thoughts, they seem to drown me instead. I've always wondered what it takes to fill this empty void inside, but now I've realized you were what I needed this whole time.
Hi guys, so that sun glare, not gonna be able to get rid of it. I was trying different angles and it's just there. I figured I would give you guys an update. I'm on page 252 and I'm almost done. It's been a couple days since that day at the coffee shop. Right now, they're getting ready to go out and attack the Capitol, and Katniss is trying to prove that she is willing and able to go fight at the Capitol. She is determined to kill Snow herself, and she has to prove that she is physically gonna be able to fight against the Capitol. But the parts about Peeta and his healing and everything, and them trying to get him back to normal, back to the way he was, is really hard reading through and really sad. And Katniss doesn't think that he's ever going to be back to the way he was. So yeah, they're working through it. He's getting a little bit better. They're seeing some leeway in him getting back to normal, but not fully, and it's not gonna come anytime soon. But he doesn't at least want to fully kill Katniss, so that's good. So that's where we're at with Peeta. I'm going to keep reading for a bit. I'll give you more thoughts if I have any. Otherwise, I'll check in with you guys at the end.
No one else has got me feeling this way. Every minute, every hour I spend is on you every single day. I've always wondered what it takes to fill this empty void inside. Something about...
Just finished getting ready for the day because Brendan and I are going to go to Epcot for a bit, but until we go to that, I'm just gonna relax for a little bit and read. I am almost done. I only have a little bit left. I am at the part that no one loves. Just a lot of not fun things happening, and I don't know why, for some reason, I thought that this was actually my favorite one. This most definitely is not my favorite one. Catching Fire is my favorite one, and I can easily say that now. I'm just trying to make it through the book, and then I can get to Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I am really, really excited to get to. I'm anxious to get to it and see what my thoughts are on it. So let's finish up this book so that we can get over to that new book. Okay, I finally finished it, and I don't have too many more thoughts aside from what I already said, but it was incredibly difficult to get through the end of the book like I already remembered and was saying before, but there was a couple things that I was kind of surprised by, like when they casually mentioned it's okay, when they casually mentioned how Finnick and Annie have a kid, even though Finnick died. So that must have happened right before he went, but I'm so glad that they have a kid and Annie has a kid that she can, you know, Finnick's memory lives on and she can take care of him and all that stuff, and that's good at least. Him or her, I don't know. They just said child, they didn't say boy or girl. But the only good thing about the end of this book is the epilogue, so that's like all I can hold on to. But other than that, I'm glad this book is over because there's just too much heartbreak in this book, and I'm very excited to get to Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so let's get to that book. Alright, I'm going to be meeting up with my friends at a cutesy little park, and we're gonna have a cute little girls picnic / reading date. So I'm just waiting for her. She's about to park, and then we're gonna go find a cute spot, lay out a blanket, have ourselves a little bit of a picnic and snack, and read and talk and just hang out. I'm really excited, so I'm gonna take you guys along with me.
Every day I wake up, I'm just trying trying to feel my feet, trying to feel anything. Then I see over this.
Hi guys, I don't think I've gotten on here and talked yet since starting this one. I am 160 pages in. I am really enjoying it so far. The beginning was a bit slow for me, so I didn't really have too much to talk about up until now, but I just made it into part 2. So I am now that far into the book. If you can see it, there we go. For a while, I was struggling to get into it. There was like not much going on. It was really feeling slow, and it was just a lot of backstory on President Snow, which I know that she has to add in there so that you get a lot of backstory into President Snow's childhood and understand him more and why he is the way he is. And I was nervous going into this book about how I was gonna feel about President Snow because I don't want this book to make me like him. This book is taking place at the 10th Hunger Games. So in the Mockingjay book, that's the 75th Hunger Games. Snow is, I think, 18 or just shy of, maybe he's like 16. It's interesting to see like how the games came to be, because at the 10th Hunger Games, it was completely different than it is when we read like the other 3 books. You're learning more about how the Hunger Games formed. During this time period, the Hunger Games, there's not much to them yet. And it's interesting to see like how different they were, like all the fancy stuff, staying at the, like, I guess you could call it a hotel, and like having a few nights of getting pampered, like they have their makeup done, they have interviews, they eat a bunch of lavish food and like all this stuff. Hardly any of that happens during this time period when it's only the 10th Hunger Games. So it's really interesting to see the difference between the two. Coriolanus is in school, and him and the other students, the other students in his class, are involved in coming up with ideas on how to make the Hunger Games more interesting and better. So it's really cool to see like how they came to be and everything, but you also hate them because you're like, you have no idea what problems that's going to create in the future. There's so many subtle nods and like things to the other 3 Hunger Games books, and things are starting to click, which I was really looking forward to with this book and hoping for in this book. Other than that, there's not really anything too particular in this book that I can really talk on. I said that I didn't want to give any spoilers with this book specifically, just because I'm sure there are plenty of people that have not read this book as opposed to the other 3 Hunger Games books. So I'm not going to give any spoilers in this, don't worry, but it's starting to pick up now and getting really interesting and exciting. So I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to try and get a bunch of this book read, and then I will come back to you guys with more thoughts on this book. Talk to you soon. Ooh, one other thing I forgot to mention, and don't mind the lighting change because I wanted to make it cozy. So I have a fake fireplace going and my cozy lights on. So anyway, I've noticed a few of President Snow's classmates are, like, their last names are familiar from previous books. So that's really interesting to see other names, like familiar names, and like how those characters play a role in this book and all that stuff. So that I thought was really interesting and really cool.
And it all comes back, it's rushing in. I've been trying to find my nerve endings. Won't you come on over later and waste my time? Is this what it looks like, honey? I'm getting used to never getting over this. Won't you be my Valentine? Not just for February, but maybe my whole life. 'Cause won't you be my Valentine? Have you got something to say now? 'Cause I've been holding my breath. I've got a bad habit of talking too much, and it usually ends in regret. But then I see.
Hi guys, I didn't really read too much in the past week, but I did read a huge chunk yesterday, and I had a few more thoughts that I wanted to talk about. So it's taken me a while to like form an opinion on this book, which is also part of the reason why I haven't really talked too much about it yet, but it's starting to get interesting again. That's one thing that I wanted to mention about this book, is that sadly for me, unlike probably for a lot of other people, it's been kind of hard to get into this book. The beginning was a bit slow for me, and it was a lot of character building more so than world building, because there is a lot we already know about this world, but the characters are all pretty much new except for a few. So it's a lot of building on their characters and just learning more about like how the Hunger Games used to be, or the lack thereof of the Hunger Games back then. And so it was pretty slow in my opinion, but other than that, I do love the characters that we're reading about, and there's a little bit of romance that's put into this book, and I do like that. And I'm liking President Snow. His first name is Coriolanus, or Corio for short, but I'm liking Corio more than I wanted to or hoped I would, and I had a feeling I was gonna like him in this book, of course, because it is about him. It focuses on his past and all of that, and so I knew that I was going to like him more in this book, but I'm really curious to see like how he changes, because in this book he's a lot different than when you see him in the future in the other Hunger Games books. So it's really interesting to see how he was in the past and try and come up with ideas as to how he changes so much and like why he changes so much. And there's just certain things about the main girl in this book that are very similar to how Katniss is. And it's ironic because the girl in this book is also from District 12, just like Katniss. And so it's interesting just to see like all the similarities, and I have a feeling that's why he treated Katniss the way he did in the other books, because of this girl. And that's all I'll say, because like I said, I didn't want to have this be spoilers or anything like that, so I'm trying to keep it very vague for you guys. One thing that's wild to me is that these books are young adult, and I don't understand. And I said that with the other books, especially with this one too. There's been a lot of like gruesome things mentioned, like bodies hung from chains and bodies dragged behind horses and like stuff like that. It's gruesome, and like it's not spared from being described. Like they describe it a bit in the book, and so I'm just really surprised that this is listed as young adult. Other than that, there are other things that like I noticed throughout the book that I wanted to share with you guys too, but I have to look at my notes. There are certain things that the students come up with that I'm kind of surprised they're the ones that came up with and not like the game makers or anything like that. And there are things that, okay, Molly. There are things that continue to stay in the Hunger Games in the future or are elaborated on and added to. So that was really neat to see like how those things came to be or why people thought of those things, because there's reasons behind why things were changed in the Hunger Games. And it's also interesting to see like how Coriolanus first thought about those ideas. Another thing that I've been trying to figure out is who Coriolanus ends up with, because if you remember in the other 3 Hunger Games books, he has a granddaughter. So obviously he has a family, like he has a wife at one point, or at least someone that he had a child with, and then they have children and stuff like that. So like I've been trying to figure out who he ends up with, and there's an obvious person that you think he's gonna end up with, but you also wonder in the back of your mind, does something tragic happen to that person? Then he ends up with someone that he either necessarily didn't want to be with, or he finds another person that he loves like later on in the future, but like he always has this past with this person that he so deeply loved. I'm really curious to see how that turns out, and I really hope that it's talked about and there's closure on that in this book, because there's so much left of this book that I have to read. Like this is how much I have left to read. I calculated it earlier and I have 224 pages left, which seems like so much. Like this book is bigger than I thought. It's over 500 pages. That's another thought too, is that I can't decide if I think that it's a little bit too long or not of a book. Some of it just felt like it was just added fluff, and I didn't like that part of it. But aside from that, like it is a really good book and there are really interesting things about it. But that is all the thoughts that I have so far. I'm gonna keep reading. I'll give you guys more thoughts as they come up. I completely forgot to mention this in the beginning when I first started this book, but I don't know how recent any of you read the Hunger Games books or watched the movies or anything like that, but in the 3rd book, there's a character, her name's Tigress, and she helps hide Katniss and a few of the other people that are with her. I think they're in like District 13 and they're trying to film and stuff, but they're running away from the Capitol and they're trying to get to President Snow to kill him. That I feel comfortable talking about because like most of you, I hope, have seen the movie at least and know like the premise of that story. But the character Tigress that helps hide them for a little bit, she is like a fashion designer and stuff like that, and there wasn't much importance to her, but in this book we realize that Tigress is President Snow's cousin. So Tigress is related to him, but it's not even mentioned in the third book / movie. I don't think it is, at least. I don't know, I found that really interesting, and also the fact that she's helping them, and so it's like what happens between the two of them in this book, like if anything happens in this book that causes them to not like each other anymore, because they're really close in this book. So I'm like really curious to see like what happens between them, and I have some ideas. I don't know, it just was really interesting. Okay, back to reading. Okay, going into part 3 of the book, I have some predictions about what's gonna happen. I'm gonna write them down and then see if my predictions are right, and I'll let you know if they are or not, but I obviously won't tell you what they are. And I'm kind of nervous what's gonna happen, but also like eager to see what happens. Shortly after I set down the camera, like stopped talking, things got really good. So they just keep getting more and more interesting, and so this last part of the book, I'm sure, is gonna be like insane. Like so much is gonna happen, so I'm really excited to continue to read. But I am now on page 323. I have a good chunk left to go still, but I'm starting to really speed through the book, which means that it's really good. So I will let you guys know if I'm correct on my prediction and any more thoughts that I have. Hi guys, we flew home just for this weekend. We're here to watch the Milwaukee Bucks home opener game, which is tonight, so we're getting ready to go to that soon. So before we go, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This book was insane, and there's just like so much that happens in this book, so I made sure as I was reading to like write down some notes, and I kept them on my phone, but I am recording on my phone, so I'm gonna go through my laptop and I'm gonna read my notes from there. So a couple of these notes that I wrote I won't be able to share because they are spoilers, but I was thinking about it and I think I want to give a spoiler section at the end of this video because there's just some big things that happen that I just need to talk about and get off my chest and see if any of you felt the same. A lot of people did really like this book, and I felt a little different about it. One note that I can read, there were so many nods to the rest of the series. For instance, the Mockingjays, like he came across the Mockingjays and Jabberjays, and for certain reasons he does not like them. And so that was one thing I found interesting, because those are brought up and used in the Hunger Games in the rest of the series. And then music. Music is focused on a little bit in the rest of the Hunger Games series, especially in the first book and the third book. When Katniss sings a song to Rue, that song is sung in this book. The main girl is singing it to a little girl. And then the hanging tree. This is not a big spoiler or anything. This isn't giving anything away, but you can still skip this part. I'll put a little timestamp if you still don't want to know absolutely anything. Here's a timestamp to skip this spot. This has nothing to do with like the rest of the story. I just found this to be an interesting fact. So skip to this spot if you don't want to hear this part. Hi guys. Okay, so my phone most definitely died. It is the next day. It's the next night actually. We went to the game. It was a lot of fun. The Bucks won. It was a really good time, and we got back super duper late, so I wasn't gonna record last night, and then today I had some things going. The last thing that I was about to say is I was really surprised when I found out that Lucy Gray, the main side character, wrote The Hanging Tree. So if you remember from the third movie / third book, they mentioned the Hanging Tree, and Katniss sings it, and Lucy Gray wrote that song in this book. So I thought that was really cool. It's neat to just like see what the inspiration was for the song too, because they talk about what they think the story or like what the song is inspired by, and it's neat to see actually what inspired the song in this book. So that was really interesting. Okay, so I can't tell all of my thoughts on this part, but I honestly, for a lot of this book, well, at least the second half, was just really disappointed in Coriolanus and all of his decisions that he made. There were two different paths he could have taken for so many different things that happened in this book, and he took the wrong path, and it just made me so mad. But it obviously explains why he ends up the way he does in the other three books. So I guess it makes sense, and it had to happen the way it did, but it drove me nuts. And at first I was fine with him. The first half of the book, I was fine with him. And then the second half of the book, he drove me nuts. So there's that. Okay, so at the end of this book, I was honestly speechless. Like, genuinely didn't know what to think of this book by the end, because I remember thinking, like, I told you guys earlier in this vlog how I was really curious to see how the book was going to take a turn, because I had a feeling it would. There was going to be some huge thing that happens at the end or something. There definitely were some crazy things that happened, but it wasn't what I expected at all. And honestly, I feel like the end of this book was just really rushed. Like, they just had like all these things going, and they were gradually like continuing the story where we thought it was going to go. And then all of a sudden, like, all these things happened within like a few chapters, and it was just, I don't know, it went off the rails a little bit. And I feel like the author just had to like finish the book and come up with an ending, and it just felt really rushed. So I was really annoyed with that part of the book and didn't really like that. Didn't feel like entirely satisfied with how it ended. But like, there were some things that happened earlier in the book that are like loose ends that are tied up, but it just didn't feel like closure. And it just was so frustrating, because it, like I said, it could have gone a completely different way for him, and he did it to himself. So it just made it frustrating. It made it harder for me to enjoy the book. It took longer for me to get through this book than I hoped it would, and it just felt like not as good of a book as I hoped it was going to be or thought it was going to be, which is really honestly a bummer to say, and makes me so sad to say, because for the most part I was only hearing really good ratings on the book. So I was genuinely surprised that I didn't feel the same, and really bummed, because I had high hopes for this book. And especially like, since obviously I love this series, like I've said earlier in the vlog, I was looking forward to getting to this one and just like learning more about President Snow's past and like why he is the way he is. And don't get me wrong, we learn that in this book, but I don't know, like I feel half and half about this book. There are things that I was so glad happened in this book, and I was so happy to like find out, but there were a lot of things too that just felt like they weren't needed. Like, this book kept going back and forth between like having areas where there was just like a lot of fluff, but then also parts where like huge things would happen. There was just a lot going on. It just felt off to me. I wrote that he was delusional. There's more to that comment, but I can't say it because spoilers. But he's just delusional. But yeah, I guess mostly I just felt like the book dragged out, and then at the very end, the chapters just kind of wrapped up super quick. The very, very end of the book, they could have expanded on that part a little bit more instead of some of the other things that they focused on. But aside from that, there were some really interesting things in this book that I'm so glad we got. I'm glad we got to learn more about President Snow and his past. So with all that being said, my final thoughts on this book, I gave it a 3.5. I'm so bummed giving it a 3.5 stars out of 5 because I totally thought it was at least going to be a 4-star book, 4.5-star book. I didn't know, like maybe even a 5-star book, but I at least thought it was going to be a 4-star, 4.5-star. But 3.5 is where I'm sitting at. That's how I feel, just because it took a while to get into. I wasn't really, like, the main characters I was rooting for were side characters, and when that happens, you know that it's like not your favorite book and it drops it down a little bit lower. So anyway, 3.5 stars. It's definitely still something that I recommend people read because there are some really interesting things that happen in this book. You learn a lot about President Snow, but then you also learn a lot about just like the Hunger Games in general and like how things became the way they are and where things were thought up and like created. So if you really like the Hunger Games like me, I definitely still think you should read this book. Who knows, you might like it a lot better than I did. I did still enjoy this book. There are things that I enjoyed about this book. It just wasn't my absolute favorite out of the whole series. So make sure to check it out. Otherwise, that is it for this reading vlog. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I really hope you enjoyed. Make sure to leave comments down below your thoughts on any of these books. If you read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, what you thought of it, what you rated it, or if you haven't read it yet and are going to, leave all the comments below. And thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like this video, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't already subscribed to my channel. And I will see you in my next video, which I am going to be doing a reading vlog on Fourth Wing. I am finally starting Fourth Wing and I am so excited. So make sure to stay tuned and check out the reading vlog coming up soon for Fourth Wing. With that being said, I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Okay, now for the spoiler section of this video where I tell you guys all of my wild thoughts I had throughout this book. Okay, so I'm gonna go back up to the beginning. Okay, so the first thing I talked about was, how is this a young adult book? They are definitely not young adult. Cannibalism, bodies dragged behind a carriage or behind horses, that's disgusting. Like, I can't believe those were mentioned and that this is still a young adult book. Like, it's definitely not meant to be young adult. And I did say that earlier, but like, even when they talk about they drive an axe into someone's neck, like the other 3 Hunger Games books, like those even, I'm surprised were young adult. But yeah, like cannibalism, like the guy seen eating a maid in the alley, that was disgusting. And like, some of these things are explained in more detail than I thought they would have been. And then I said, it's interesting to see where the Hunger Games started and how simple they used to be. At first I was surprised that they were having students be the mentors, and I was wondering how they were going to change that and stop that, because you know how like in the other 3 books, it's the victors end up being your mentor for the Hunger Games. And so I was curious how they were going to change that, and it makes more sense now finishing the book with like how attached Coriolanus got to Lucy Gray and Sejanus got attached to Marcus, and like how he went in there into the arena and tried performing the ceremony over Marcus just like out of respect for him and stuff like that, and then how Coriolanus had to go into the arena. And then when you see at the end that they're like, yeah, so we're not gonna have the students be mentors anymore, like it made sense why they did that. Next thing, I started out saying I don't mind Corio. So I'm curious to see what changes him so much that he ends up the way he is in the other 3 books. I have a couple ideas. One of them was that Lucy Gray dies by the hands of the Capitol, or she dies and it destroys him so much that when Katniss comes into his life, it reminds him of Lucy in multiple ways. So he forms this automatic hatred toward her, but not enough to kill her, because there's multiple things, like Lucy Gray's fascination with birds and singing, which Katniss isn't fascinated with singing, but she does sing a few songs. Or It's Not Over Until the Mockingjay sings, and just mockingjays in general, and how that was the symbol that was used for Katniss. Like, all that stuff is tied to Lucy Gray, because Lucy Gray quotes that, it's not over till the Mockingjay sings. and like the Jabberjays being used, like all of that was really interesting to see. But also I was curious too, like if Coriolanus didn't end up with Lucy, who is he going to end up with? And it was interesting, he brought up one of the other students that he wouldn't mind ending up with, because he said at the very end he'd be better off being with someone that he doesn't like, because at least he doesn't have to worry about trusting them or putting faith in them and like opening up to them, because that scares him and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to, you know, he's better off on his own, but he also wants a family and all of that and to have kids. So why not have it with someone that you don't like? It's so stupid. Some of the decisions that he made and like reasons behind the decisions he made were so stupid and frustrating. Like I know that's how it's supposed to be, but it was just like irritating enough that I still like couldn't fully enjoy the book. Then I wrote, I'm in part 3 now and I have a feeling that Dr. Gall is going to make Corio kill Lucy or something tragic is going to happen to Coriolanus and he's going to burst in outrage and kill Dr. Gall somehow. I totally thought that was going to happen and I was surprised when it didn't. I thought they were going to make him kill Lucy, or that Dr. Gall, like he was going to go crazy and kill Dr. Gall. Which he did kind of, like Dr. Gall did kind of convince him to kill Lucy, but not in like a straightforward way. But she did kind of inspire him, because Dr. Gall's words got into his head by the end, and so he was like, I can't be with Lucy. It just makes sense to be in the Capitol. And then Dr. Gall got him to stay and take classes in the Capitol instead of going to District 2. So I don't know, I feel like Dr. Gall did influence his decisions that he made and everything, and she got into his head, even though he didn't like her and didn't agree with her for most of the book. And then all of a sudden he changes his mind. Like it didn't make sense to me. And he kept saying how in love he was with Lucy Gray and how they were meant to be together and they were gonna run away. And he could see himself being so happy, living out in the wild and hunting for their food and not having to worry about like following the Capitol's orders and like being under their control. He'd have control of his own life and all that stuff. And then he goes and starts doing that with Lucy Gray and they run away successfully, and then he hates it and wants to go back like 2 seconds later. And I'm sorry, but he grabs a gun and he starts chasing after her and he thinks, oh, I'm like worried about her, you know, finding out that he is the reason Sejanus is dead, which, oh my god, that broke my heart. And I don't know, maybe that's an unpopular opinion, maybe that's a hot take, but I was rooting for Sejanus. I liked him. And that happened so quick. Like she just skimmed through it, the author. Like she didn't even like spend time on it. It was just like, nope, he's getting hanged and it's happening, and then it happened. Like there was no time in between, or there was no part of Coriolanus trying to fight for Sejanus and try and free him or try and defend him and say like, I don't know, may come up with some excuse to try and get them to redact the hanging and not have it happen anymore. I don't know. I was genuinely surprised that happened, and it happened so quick, and it was, I think that's what made it even worse, made it so sad. There's just so many decisions that Coriolanus made that I just didn't understand. And that leads into this comment I made. I said, I'm honestly so frustrated and annoyed with Corio and his decisions. I feel so bad for the outcome of Sejanus, that Sejanus was dealt. It's all Corio's stupid ass fault. And even though he has caring and compassionate moments, all he truly focuses on is how he can stay in control and have power, which does match how he is in the future. So like it makes sense, and he had to be like that, but it still didn't make it less frustrating to see him change into that type of person. Only someone as truly twisted and messed up in the head as him could go from calling Sejanus a brother 1 minute to faking grief about him the next minute. Like, I did not understand that. Like, he is so two-faced, and it pissed me off. Like, I just couldn't even enjoy the book because I was so irritated and frustrated with him. But at the same time, like, the author is so smart for being able to pull those emotions out of me and be able to like get me pretty attached to the characters as much as she did, because as much as I wasn't enjoying the book, it does say something that the author is able to still pull such strong emotions out of someone. Then I said, oh my god, is he about to kill Lucy Gray? Does he even actually love her or care about her? Clearly not, if he's thinking about ditching her and killing her just to cover his tracks on the murder and Sejanus's death. Like, I found that to be so shocking, and how he just like chased after her and he was like, oh, gotta play it cool, like, Lucy, I just want to talk to you, but then is holding out a gun and expecting her to just come willingly and talk to him and everything's gonna be fine, hunky-dory. Like, no. He tries to kill her, he shoots all the way around himself and thinks he hears like that he hit her, but doesn't see her. Like, he never sees her again. And so he doesn't know for sure if she actually died. But then also is like, oh, I hope she lives and I think it'll be fine. Like, I'm not worried about her ratting me out because she loves me. I'm sorry, sir, but no, she can't love you after you just chased after her with a gun, tried hunting her down and killing her. No. And like backstabbed her when she said she trusts you and how she doesn't trust people. No. Like, that's where I was saying, like, he's so delusional. He counteracted what he was saying, like, within the same sentence. Like, he would literally say one thing and within the same sentence say the exact opposite thing and completely change what he was saying. Like, he made no sense. And it was wild at the very, very end when he's talking to the dean and he does the rat poisoning in the morphling and throws it in the trash, knowing that the dean is going to pick that up and kills him like that. And like when he first killed, whatever that guy's name was that started with a B, and he like beat him to death, and how he was so shook that he actually had killed someone. And then he just like casually gets so comfortable with killing people, and he's like killing the dean and like thinking up this elaborate way to like kill him and everything. It just like makes no sense. Like, he kept acting like this innocent guy, this innocent kid who didn't want to kill anyone, but then casually kills people. Like, sir, make up your mind and just own it. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Tell us how you really feel, Julia. Okay. Anyway, that's my spoiler thoughts for you guys. Hope you enjoyed hearing those. Maybe some of you agree with me. Leave comments below on your thoughts if you agree with what I said or disagree. It's okay. Just be easy, be nice, be fair in the comments, but it's okay to have your opinions too. So you can leave comments below on your thoughts, but put a warning at the very beginning of the note if you're going to leave any spoilers. Please put spoilers ahead so that people don't read it if they don't want to, because I don't want to ruin anything for anyone if they don't want spoilers. Hope you enjoyed those thoughts, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
She make my temperature rise. She make me want suicide. I cry whenever she's twisted.